Level 0. They're not alive. Not truly. They don't breathe. They don't grow. They don't eat. And yet they kill more humans than most predators ever have. Viruses are pure code, snippets of genetic instruction wrapped in protein, DNA or RNA, sometimes double-stranded, sometimes single, sometimes sheathed in a lipid envelope stolen from the very cells they hijack. They can't move on their own, they don't have engines, but they do have one directive: replicate, and they do it by tricking your cells into doing the work. A virus doesn't knock, it infiltrates. It binds to receptors like a key in a lock, slips inside, and rewrites the rules. Your cell stops being yours, it becomes a virus factory, and that's when the damage begins. Not just from the virus, but from the immune system's overreaction, from fevers that boil the brain, from clotting cascades that choke off organs, from storms of inflammation that burn the host from within. This is level 0, the origin story of every viral killer. Level 1. There's no second chance. If you're bitten and you wait too long, there's no turning back. Rabies is caused by the Lassa virus, a bullet-shaped RNA virus found in the saliva of infected mammals, dogs, foxes, bats. Once inside, it doesn't head for your blood. It gets on your nerves. It crawls up your peripheral nervous system like a shadow rising from your extremities. By the time it hits the brain, it's over. The symptoms start with fever, then twitching at the wound site, then anxiety, agitation, hydrophobia, not just fear of water, but spasms in the throat so violent that even thinking about drinking triggers pain. Hallucinations follow, delirium, paralysis, then a coma, then death. If treated early, with prompt wound cleaning and post-exposure prophylaxis, survival is near 100%. But once symptoms begin, the case fatality rate approaches 100%. Only a handful of people have ever survived symptomatic rabies. It's one of the few viruses that literally rewires the brain, increasing aggression, encouraging biting, and promoting its own spread. Rabies is why we vaccinate our pets, not to protect them, but to build a firewall around ourselves. Level 2. This one doesn't hide in forests, it lives in cities. Dengue virus is spread by Aedes aegypti, a mosquito that thrives in human settlements, laying eggs in water, pooled in tires, bottle caps, flower pots. There are 4 major serotypes of dengue. Get infected once, you'll likely recover. Get infected a second time with a different serotype, and your immune system might turn against you. That's antibody-dependent enhancement, when prior immunity makes the next infection worse. Instead of neutralizing the virus, your antibodies help it infect even more cells. The result? Dengue hemorrhagic fever, internal bleeding, leaky blood vessels, organ failure. The severe form kills thousands every year, especially children. Globally, dengue infects up to 400 million people annually. Fever, rash, eye pain, vomiting, and a bone-breaking body ache that earned it the name breakbone fever. There's no cure, only fluids, rest, and hope the immune system doesn't overreact. Dengue reminds us that even the smallest predator, a mosquito, can carry a virus that turns immunity into a liability. Level 3. This one waits in the dust. Hantaviruses are carried by rodents, deer mice, cotton rats, and others, without causing disease in the animals themselves. But their urine, saliva, and droppings dry into dust that humans can inhale. And that's all it takes. In North America, the strain to fear is sin nombre virus. It causes hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, HPS. The early symptoms are deceptively mild: fever, fatigue, muscle aches. But within days, the lungs begin to leak fluid, the capillaries collapse, oxygen levels crash, and death can come swiftly, sometimes within 24 hours of respiratory decline. The mortality rate, around 38%. There's no vaccine, no antiviral, only supportive care, oxygen, ventilation, and hope. In South America and Asia, hantaviruses can also cause hemorrhagic fever with renal syndrome, damaging kidneys instead of lungs. Most exposures happen in rural areas, abandoned cabins, sheds, barns, places where rodents nest and where disturbed dust becomes a deadly aerosol. Hantavirus teaches that not every danger comes from people. Some come from quiet spaces we think are empty. Level 4. This virus doesn't whisper, it roars with color. Yellow fever is an RNA virus in the Flavivirus family, the same family as dengue and Zika. It's carried by mosquitoes, especially in tropical Africa and South America. The first stage mimics the flu: fever, chills, nausea. Then comes a deceptive lull. Patients start to recover. But in about 15%, the virus enters a toxic phase, and that's where things turn deadly. The liver fails. Jaundice sets in, turning eyes and skin yellow. The stomach bleeds. Patients vomit black clots of digested blood. Black vomit, a grim sign of internal destruction. And up to half of those who enter this stage will die within 2 weeks. There's no treatment, only prevention. A single vaccine dose offers lifelong protection. But in outbreak zones, vaccine supply often lags behind demand. Yellow fever decimated armies and colonies for centuries, especially in the Americas. Even today, it's listed as a high-priority pathogen by the WHO due to its epidemic potential. Yellow fever is a historical killer, and one mosquito flight away from a modern resurgence. Level 5. This one doesn't need crowds. It needs grain and rats. Lassa virus is an arenavirus endemic to West Africa. Its natural host, the multi-mammoth rat, Mastomys natalensis, one of the most common rodents in the region. These rats shed the virus in urine and droppings. The virus contaminates food, surfaces, storage areas. Inhalation or ingestion brings it in. About 80% of cases are mild or asymptomatic. But for the rest, it becomes hemorrhagic. Bleeding gums, respiratory distress, swollen faces, low blood pressure, and death. Pregnant women are especially vulnerable, with high fetal mortality, especially in the 3rd trimester. Each year, there are up to 300,000 Lassa infections in West Africa, with thousands of deaths. It's underreported, underdetected, because early symptoms mimic malaria, typhoid, and other common illnesses. There is no widely available vaccine, though candidates are in development. Ribavirin may help if given early, but access is limited. Hospitals without proper protective gear often become epicenters, where one patient infects dozens of staff. Lassa reveals how poverty, rodents, and fragile health systems can turn local viruses into national emergencies. Level 6. This virus waits in grass, on livestock, on skin. CrimeanHemorrhagic Fever virus is one of the deadliest tick-borne viruses on Earth. First identified in Crimea in 1944 and later in the Congo, it's since spread across Africa, the Middle East, Asia, and parts of Europe. Ticks are the main vectors, especially hyaloma ticks, but the virus also spreads through contact with infected animal blood or tissue, especially in slaughterhouses. Human-to-human transmission can occur through blood, fluids, or needles. After a short incubation, the symptoms erupt: sudden high fever, headache, muscle aches, back pain, then bruising, bleeding from gums, nose, injection sites, liver failure, shock, death. Fatality rates range from 10% to 40%, depending on care quality. And there is no approved vaccine outside of a few countries. Ribavirin may help, but timing is critical. Because the virus is so contagious and hard to diagnose early, hospitals often struggle to contain it. One case in a rural area can trigger a chain of infections among family, staff, and caregivers. CCHF shows that even one tick bite, in the wrong season, in the wrong place, can spark a public health crisis. Level 7. It doesn't spread easily, but when it does, it devastates. Nepovirus is carried by fruit bats, flying foxes, natural reservoirs with no symptoms. The virus first emerged in Malaysia in 1998. It leapt from bats to pigs, then to humans. Farmers began dying of unexplained fevers and brain swelling. The virus causes encephalitis, inflammation of the brain. Symptoms start mild: fever, headache, drowsiness, then seizures, confusion, coma. Mortality rates vary, but can exceed 75% in outbreaks. There is no cure, no approved vaccine. In Bangladesh, infections have been traced to raw date palm sap, contaminated by bat droppings. In some outbreaks, human-to-human transmission occurred, often in hospitals or close contact settings. Unlike influenza, Nipah doesn't explode into the world. It simmers, a quiet virus with pandemic potential, listed by the WHO as a top Disease X threat. And here's the worst part, it mutates. And one mutation could make it airborne. Nipah is a warning that not all threats are loud, some are just waiting for the right mutation. Level 8. Same family as Ebola, same symptoms, same fear. Marburgvirus was first identified in 1967 after lab workers in Germany became ill. They had handled infected green monkeys from Uganda. But the real host? Fruit bats again. It begins like many viral fevers, chills, headache, malaise. Then it turns brutal. Bleeding from mucous membranes, organ failure, shock. In the worst cases, internal hemorrhaging floods the system. Victims die dehydrated, bleeding, and in agony. Fatality rates up to 88% depending on the outbreak. Outbreaks are rare, but intense. A single traveler returning from a cave can launch a health alert across continents. There's no approved vaccine, no licensed antiviral. Experimental treatments exist, but they're still under study. Containment is all about speed, finding contacts, isolating them, breaking the chain. Marburg shows how fast a single viral spillover can spiral and how thin the line is between isolation and epidemic. Level 9. It kills fast, it kills loud, and it kills with reputation alone. Ebola is another filovirus, like Marburg, and is infamous for its hemorrhagic fevers. Discovered in 1976 near the Ebola River in what's now the Democratic Republic of the Congo, it has caused over 24 known outbreaks, some small, others catastrophic. The 2014 to 2016 West African epidemic was the worst. Over 28,000 infections, more than 11,000 deaths. Whole villages vanished. Transmission happens through direct contact with blood, vomit, feces, or even sweat. The virus isn't airborne, but its symptoms spread terror like wildfire. Patients bleed internally, from the eyes, the gums, the intestines. Death is caused by shock, fluid loss, and organ failure. Survivors may suffer long-term effects, joint pain, vision problems, and psychological trauma. Vaccines now exist, like RVSV-ZEBOV, which helped contain later outbreaks. But they're reactive tools used during outbreaks, not before. Ebola reminds the world that fear is part of the epidemic, and trust in public health can be the difference between life and collapse. Level 10. It doesn't kill with fever, it kills with time. HIV, human immunodeficiency virus, targets CD4 plus T cells, critical components of the immune system. It integrates into the host's DNA, silently reproducing. Over months to years, it wears down the body's ability to fight off infections. Eventually, the patient develops AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, when the immune system is so compromised that minor infections or cancers become fatal. The virus spreads through blood, semen, vaginal fluids, breast milk, via unprotected sex, shared needles, or from mother to child during birth or breastfeeding. At its peak, HIV ravaged populations worldwide. Over 40 million deaths since the 1980s. Currently, 39 million people live with HIV today. But the story changed. The discovery of antiretroviral therapy, ART, turned HIV from a death sentence into a manageable chronic condition. Patients who adhere to treatment can live full, healthy lives, and with undetectable viral loads, they can't transmit the virus sexually. Still, stigma persists. Access to treatment remains unequal, and some variants may resist standard therapy. HIV proves that not all deadly viruses arrive with drama. Some just wait until you stop fighting. Level 11. It didn't hide in jungles. It traveled in airplanes. SARS-CoV-2, the virus behind COVID-19, emerged in late 2019, likely from a wildlife reservoir, possibly bats or an intermediate host. It crossed into humans somewhere in Wuhan, China. It spread via respiratory droplets and aerosols, making it incredibly contagious. And the real trick? It could spread before symptoms ever showed. COVID-19 symptoms ranged from mild cough to total organ failure, fever, fatigue, loss of taste and smell, but also blood clots, brain fog, stroke, myocarditis. No organ was safe. By 2024, COVID-19 had infected hundreds of millions and killed over 7 million globally. But indirect effects on mental health, chronic illness, education, and the economy reached billions. The virus mutated. Alpha spread faster. Delta hit harder. Omicron slipped past immunity. Vaccines were developed in record time, particularly mRNA vaccines from Pfizer-BioNTech and Moderna, saving tens of millions of lives. Boosters, antiviral pills like Paxlovid, and mass testing became part of daily life. COVID isn't over. It has become endemic, still evolving, still infecting, but largely manageable for the vaccinated. SARS-CoV-2 didn't just show us how a virus spreads, it showed us how systems bend and societies break. Level 12. This one is history, but history isn't always dead. Smallpox, caused by the variola virus, was once the most feared disease on Earth. It spread through aerosols, contaminated linens, and close contact, infecting whole households in days. Symptoms began like the flu, then came the rash, turning into pustules hard like bullets under the skin. They spread across the body. Then they burst. Mortality hovered around 30%. Survivors were often blinded or disfigured. It killed children, kings, explorers, and empires. In 1796, Edward Jenner pioneered the first smallpox vaccine, using cowpox as a safe variant. Over the next 180 years, vaccination campaigns intensified, and in 1980, the WHO declared smallpox eradicated, the first and only human disease to be wiped out completely. But samples still exist in 2 high-security labs, one in the US, one in Russia. Some fear it could be re-engineered. Others worry about accidental release. And as synthetic biology advances, recreating variola is becoming technically possible using its published genome. Smallpox is proof that viruses can be conquered, but also a reminder that nature's worst ideas can be archived, rebooted, or remade. Some viruses vanish, others echo. Stay informed, stay ahead, tap subscribe. See you in the next video.